My name is Dan Shanahan. I'm at the Faculty of Humanities, Charles University. We co-sponsor the UPCES program. I teach most of my courses in the UPCES program. And if you're watching this, you've been admitted to the UPCES program, and I'm here partly to welcome you, partly to tell you how you might prepare psychologically for um, what you've gotten yourself into, and most especially to say hats off to all of you. You've made a very, very wise choice, not just getting into the UPCES program, which I think is a very good program, and I've got 30 years experience with these kinds of things, but leaping into the whole international arena. Um, this is the future. It really is the future. I've been in international education really all my career, and I've watched it grow. I think I sort of caught it just at the beginning of the wave back in the late 70s. And anyone who has had the wisdom to do what you've done, to get involved in a program like this, to make the commitment and the effort to go abroad and to jump outside your skin, be someone you can't be back in the States, that will serve you so well in the years to come, for all of your productive life. I have two sons. One is 22, one is 18, and they're both bicultural, bilinguals, and people meet them and talk about them and say, these guys are really prepared for the future, aren't they? They both speak two languages, one of them speaks three. They're what's happening. And I say, absolutely, they are. But they lucked into it. You've made the decision. And I think it's a wise decision. And as I said, hats off to you all for doing that. I just want to say a couple of things about what you might be thinking about between now and the time you make your trip over here. Um, what I try and say to students is that you should understand you're going obviously from one pond to another. And the water in the pond over here is different from the water in the pond that you've probably lived in most of your lives. That's one of the most exciting things about what you're about to do. You're going to find different plant life, different fish life, amphibians. See how long I can extend this metaphor. Um, and it's something that you should take advantage of while you have the opportunity. Everyone is here to see Europe. Everyone is here to do some traveling, and that's fine. But what I would encourage you to do is to realize that here in Prague, in your home base, this is where you can go out and you can breathe very, very different air. And every day experience the experience of being out of your element, which is an incredibly positive thing, incredibly energizing thing if you learn to soak it in as part of the experience that you're getting while you're here. I tell people, first thing in the morning, as you get ready to step out the door, remember where you're going. Remember you're going, be living with other Americans most likely, be an English-speaking environment. Once you step out that door, you're in Czechland, and that's exciting. It's exciting because it forces you to think outside the boundaries of your own envelope. It's exciting because it begins to expose you to what you're going to find during the rest of your life, and that is what they have called globalization in an economic sense, but what is really globalization in a cultural, in a social, some would even say in an almost spiritual sense. We're not in Kansas anymore anywhere. Globalization has really taken over the world. And when you step out that door and you begin to breathe the air, I'm speaking metaphorically here as well as literally, you start to experience that. And what it does really in the end is to enlarge you. It makes you a bigger person. Now, you're going to find lots of differences. Some of you may be in my course, Czechs, Americans, and Europeans, where we talk about some of these kinds of things that you encounter every day. There are little things, like the fact that when you go into a shop, if someone is coming out of the shop and it's a small door, they have the right of way. The logic being that people coming out of the shop are likely to have packages or bags in their hands and need the right of way to get out. I don't recall there being anything like that in the States, mostly automatic doors anyway, and when you're shopping in the States. But you'll find these little practices that go on that can be charming, they can be mystifying, but they're part of learning new rules to a new game. Yeah, if you want, it's the same game. It's just played differently in different cultures. You are not likely to find any anti-Americanism, if any of you have had any anticipations about that. Most of the European countries that were in the Warsaw Pact are still very favorable towards Americans. You won't find yourselves seen as, for instance, ugly Americans, unless you're foolish enough to act like an ugly American, and occasionally there's that kind of person who drinks too much, talks too loud, and just does not take the time to pay attention to how they're representing themselves in public. But most of you are going to be seen just as students. Students are almost a cultural group throughout the world now, regardless of where they're from. And I think most people will be as receptive to you as they are to anybody. Now, I'm putting it that way because Czechs are typically rather withdrawn, shy, reserved, even among themselves. They can be very smooth and sociable among their intimates, but in public they tend to sort of hold back. And that tends to strike people, especially if you're from, as I am, California, where very outgoing, warm, sometimes genuinely so, sometimes not, culture, it can seem cold. But understand that people are not being cold to you for being American or students or anything else. People just tend to be reserved. Get as much Czech as you can, as quickly as you can, even though it's not an easy language to learn, and I'm still on my way to trying to command it in the way I would like to. They appreciate very greatly if you can say just a few words, even if your words are, as my best words are, nemluvím moc česky, I don't speak much Czech. They're appreciative of that. And understand when you're dealing with them that there probably is a certain amount of, what would you call it? A kind of inferiority complex in the face of America. America's the biggest culture. America's one of the richest. It's the most powerful. And here's little Czech Republic that hasn't counted for much since the Battle of White Mountain back in the 17th century. So be outgoing with them. Be generous. Be friendly. And you may not find reciprocated the same kind of feelings that you're generating. But I think you'll find that people do appreciate that. Most of you will have the opportunity to meet Czechs in the UPCES classes because students from my faculty, the Czech students, take UPCES courses, as do Erasmus students, which is to say students who are part of the European system of exchange. So you'll have the opportunity to meet firsthand students who are Czech, students who are French, Finnish, German. I mean, we have them from all over the place. Make sure that you take advantage of that, because one of the things that is true and often not recognized is that people in Europe tend to make closer, more longer-lasting relationships than Americans. And that's not to put Americans down. We have a different style. But if you make friends here, they're friends for life if you want them to be. My first experience abroad as an adult was teaching on the coast of what was then Yugoslavia in 1979-80. I still have good friends from that time. In fact, I'm going to go see a couple of them in a couple of weeks. It's that deep a kind of thing, friendship, in Europe. So take advantage of the opportunity. Again, you're going to find different attitudes, not even attitudes, styles of communicating. Czechs are going to be shy. They're going to be self-conscious about their English, but just, move beyond that, get to know them, and believe me, you will definitely make friends for life. Now, I hope to see you again, perhaps by video, during the orientation time to talk to you a little bit about what most people experience in greater or smaller ways, and that's culture shock. When you get into a new culture, you're bombarded with a lot of different things, and even though those things may be relatively easy to deal with individually, having to deal with all of that puts some emotional stress on you. In anticipation of what I'll say, hopefully during the orientation week, don't worry about it. If you have, and if you find yourself completely overwhelmed, talk to the staff at UPCES, talk to me, and if you find yourself in a really difficult situation, don't worry about that, because we have access to good psychologists who can help you out and keep you afloat. Don't let me worry you with these kinds of remarks. That rarely happens. Usually it happens, if it happens, in association with some difficulty someone is experiencing at home, sometimes before they leave. I had a very good friend whose daughter went to Australia about 5 years ago for a summer study program, and a week before she left, she had to have her wisdom teeth out. And she never recovered. She got to Australia and she just, this is English-speaking country. They drive on the other side of the road, but pretty much easy to adjust to for an American. And the shock and the stress of going through this sudden last-minute operation was just too much for her, and she had to come home. So that kind of thing can happen. But as I said, don't worry about it. You'll all feel a little bit of stress. And we'll talk about that when orientation time comes, and how to cope with it. But for now, let me just say again, congratulations. You made a great decision. It's a great city to be in. If anything, it will go too fast, and come spring, you'll be saying to yourself, oh, I would give anything to be back in Prague. So understand that now. Make sure that you use your time in the best possible way. And I think you'll come out in the end very, very satisfied with the experience. So have a good trip. See you in a couple of weeks.